Welcome, everybody. Welcome to AI for Humans, your weekly guide into the wild world of generative AI. We cover all sorts of stuff, and this week is, I think, Kevin, the biggest week we have seen in AI in, I would say, a year. What's your take on it? First of all, hello.
Hi, Gavin. I'm so over the clickbait. I'm so tired of the attention-grabby headlines. You're just appealing to people's emotions to get them to click on the most insane week in AI ever. But you're right.
It's pretty crazy, though.
You're right.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, we're going to get into this. OpenAI released a bunch of videos of their new text-to-video model, Sora. And we're going to get into what's fascinating about it, why it matters, the implications.
Everyone is freaking out, Gavin. Some people are squealing with delight, and others are screaming with defright.
No.
And so, yeah, we're going to get into it.
We're 3 minutes in. We're 3 minutes in, and we got our first big bad pun. We may have more puns later on, too.
Oh, that's exciting. A spoiler for a future story. Yeah. AI not so great with the puns. We're going to tell you what people are not laughing at. Plus, Reddit just put a $60 million price tag on all of your data. And yes, that includes those posts that you made about the enormous AI mouse, which made it past a peer review. And if you're wondering what I just censored and what the heck that story is, it's coming up later in the show.
It's family friendly. Don't worry.
It is, and it's astonishing that it's a true story. Plus, Google teased a new release of their latest AI, which is Gemini, and it has some supposedly astonishing capabilities. We will break that down. And then writer, producer, director, someone who's worked on franchises like Deadpool and Doctor Strange and X-Men and even some stuff for DC. He's a dear friend of ours, and he hates artificial intelligence. I mean, with passion. And he is here to tell us why everything we celebrate is terrible, Gavin.
We have our awesome, good old friend, Gerry Duggan. He's a flat-out AI hater, and this is the kind of thing we want to have on this show. We are not just looking to toot the horn of AI. We are not out here just saying, whoop, whoop, AI. We do want to hear real people's perspectives, and Gerry is going to come with, I believe, all of the fire of Generation X that he can bring. Before we jump into the show, though, Kevin, we always have to tell people at the very top, we love you so much. Thank you so much for listening to us. But we have a job, and their job is always the same every week, and that job is to tell somebody else about the show.
We have a job.
We, as in we and you, the audience, have a job.
That's right.
Go like our YouTube videos. Tell people about it. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Again, we keep hitting all-time high after all-time high with this show. We had a really nice piece that was written in Fast Company about us this week. Please go read it. It's been super fun. But again, all of this relies on y'all sharing this show with other people, because that's the kind of like back and forth of how these things grow.
That's right, Gavin. And unfortunately, the growth has been a little too accelerated. It's been tough for you and I to stay on top of it all. We did have to bring in some outside experts. The inquiries are coming in too fast. The comments are getting a little too furious. This is what happens, Gavin, when you have a TikTok that breaks the 2 million view mark.
No, the 3 million view mark. And I feel like I've given up on answering comments on that TikTok. So we had a TikTok this week that got 3 million views. It was about OpenAI's Sora. It was a giant view for us, right? But what was interesting is the comments blew up, and half of the comments were, "It's over. I can't believe it. Why would this be allowed to exist?" All the stuff that we've heard a lot. And I tried to reply to them in a really human-centric way and try to be there and kind of be aware of what people are thinking and feeling. But it is hard, Kevin. It is really hard. So as you alluded to, as our AI co-host of this week, and if you're not familiar, every week we create an AI co-host. This is a co-host that is generated out of thin air using AI technology. We have brought back a former AI co-host. There is a woman named Sheila who is a PR maven. She's coming back to give us advice on how to deal with this like kind of influx of press that we've gotten between the TikTok, the Fast Company article, all this stuff. We really need a better sense of how to deal with this PR.
Well, let's meet Sheila. For those who aren't familiar, returning champ, PR expert, AI hallucination. Here's Sheila.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin, Gavin, and the esteemed audience of AI for Humans. I'm Sheila. Some of you might remember me from a rather unforgettable episode not too long ago involving a bit of a tussle with Monster Milk. Let's just say it wasn't the highlight of my career. But here I am, back to face the music and maybe even play a few tunes of my own.
Oh.
The PR landscape's taken some wild turns since I last stood in this spotlight. It's become a whirlwind of clicks, controversy, and, frankly, a lot of chaos. But I'm not one to shy away from a challenge or from speaking my mind. So, buckle up. I'm here to dive deep into the murky waters of public relations, social media frenzies, and the elusive quest for authenticity in an era where it seems to be in short supply.
Okay, well, it seems like Sheila's also going through some stuff right now, Gavin. Did we prompt her that she's here to help us, not the other way around?
She might have a little chip on her shoulder now. I don't think the Monster Milk thing went over that well. I think that was embarrassing to Sheila, but that is not what this is about, Sheila. We are not here for you. We are here for us. Sheila, we need your advice. We need your advice. You keep your problems to yourself, Sheila. We need your advice on how to deal with this massive influx of attention we're getting on the show.
All right, let's cut to the chase. When dealing with haters, especially those spewing nonsense about AI and your hosting chops, you've got to be tactical but fierce. First rule, don't give trolls the satisfaction of a direct confrontation. They thrive on it. Instead, use their vitriol as fuel for your fire. Show them, without a shadow of a doubt, that their hate is just background noise. Show them you're unshakable. And for the pure haters, the ones just looking to stir up trouble, use your platform to make an example out of their absurdity. A sharp, witty clapback that puts them in their place can be golden. Make it clear you're here to stay, stronger than ever, and their baseless negativity is just a blip on your radar.
Yeah, that's
Remember,
right.
aggression in response doesn't mean losing your head. It means strategically dismantling their arguments and showcasing the strength and resilience of your brand.
Okay, and that
not terrible. Not
seemed
terrible.
like the summary of every Taylor Swift album I've ever heard. Show them you're sharp and unshakable. Be bold and brave, facing winds of change.
If anybody's out there listening, Kevin is mocking Taylor Swift fans. I am not. I am definitely on your side. So I want to make sure you all know that. I am on your side. Let's be clear. So, okay. That was fine. Good PR advice. A little bit aggressive, I think. She's definitely coming to a place where she's been through some stuff.
Gavin, I don't know. I don't think it was aggressive enough. I like the new Sheila. I think this is the right PR for our broad, family-friendly brand. I think we should go on the attack.
Kevin, what do we? I guess we should get a clapback response from her to give us an example. Like there's somebody in our comments that said we were two limp noodles looking to get into Will Smith's mouth. Can we find out what she would say to that? Because that seems real mean. That's real mean. I'd like to hear what he wants to get back to that.
Crafting a response that's sharp, yet doesn't stoop to their level of negativity? Consider this.
Okay.
Well, looks like someone's culinary imagination is as limited as their understanding of AI and hosting. Unlike limp spaghetti, we're more like resilient elastic bands, stretching beyond traditional boundaries and snapping back in the face of adversity. And as for avoiding anything, the only thing we're steering clear of is the bland taste of unseasoned opinions. Thanks for watching, though. Your view counts, too.
Okay, and I'm going to just stop her response, because that is going nowhere fast.
Wow, God, this is, again, the blandness of AI that comes through in Sheila. Even when we try to tell Sheila to be a little acerbic, to be a little surly, there's still a little bit of blandness. Maybe it's the PR, maybe it's the AI. You know, Kevin, before we go, let's give her a couple sips of Monster Milk and see how that clapback changes, because I'm really kind of curious to know, maybe the secret to Sheila is the Monster Milk. Maybe that's what happened last time.
All right, after chugging that Monster Milk, feeling like a beast, ready to roar, to the limp spaghetti aficionado out there, your comment is like a single noodle trying to take down a whole dish of spaghetti carbonara. Ambitious, but futile.
That's right.
We're not just flapping in the breeze, we're the storm itself, whipping up a feast of content that's too spicy for some to handle. And if we're noodles, we're the kind that ties up loose ends and serves up a dish best eaten hot. So, keep your mayonnaise to yourself. We're dishing out flavors that require a more refined palate to appreciate. Cheers to you for the view, and remember, every great meal started with a bit of fire. Whoop, whoop.
It sure did.
Okay. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay, everybody, that is our AI co-host for this week. It is time to move on to the news.
News. News. It's the AI for humans news.
All right, first and foremost, Gavin, of course, the number one story of the week, and potentially, I know it's early to point to the bleachers, but maybe the year and maybe the foreseeable future, was the earth-shattering announcement that is Sora. This is OpenAI's text-to-video platform, which we have not got our mittens on yet, and not a day goes by that a new video doesn't come out that doesn't send social media feeds into a tailspin. If you don't know what Sora is, very briefly, this is, again, a text-to-video generation tool released by OpenAI, and what is really, really taking people back, Gavin, is the fidelity, the length, the coherence found in these little Sora clips. Feels like we have transported what we would have probably predicted to be in a year or 2 years' time, but being delivered now. You're talking characters that can move about a scene realistically, physics effects on things like water and fire, again, coherence in signs or in animals or in things where they're even obfuscated by other objects in the lens, and with a generation length of up to a minute across every different resolution, vertical, horizontal, 16 by 9, square, doesn't matter. There's a lot of innovation, which was shown off in just a few short clips. So maybe we take a step back and walk through it and then talk about what has been updated in less than a week.
Yeah, why don't we kind of dive into this? This is a really big story, and I agree with Kevin. This is probably, to me, this is the biggest thing that it's felt like since the premiere of GPT-4, which happened about a year ago. So it's a pretty big deal. And the funny thing to this was it really came out of the blue. I mean, we knew that OpenAI was working on a text-to-video model. We were aware that something like this was going to come, but we didn't expect it to come with that kind of this ferocity, I think. And I think to your point, the thing that is most impressive to me about this is it's up to 1 minute videos, and in the past we've had like 4 seconds, then you can extend out video from a text to video clip. And on top of that is the coherence. And when you say coherence in the AI space, it means like how things look, how they stay together. You don't see a person morphing into like a weird looking monster to the right. This is a minute long. There's clips of people walking through Tokyo. There's clips of a cat walking through the forest, a tiger that kind of explodes into a bunch of rose petals. All these things that are really, really pretty. And honestly, I would say multiple generations past the text-to-video stuff that we've seen today, and that's what's so weird. My initial impression with this was, like I just said, I was shocked and kind of blown away by it, but then as I dug in a little bit further, I think there are a few things that people have to be aware of, and we'll talk about the technical aspects of them, but one of the most interesting things to me about this whole process is it's attempting in part to be a world simulator, meaning that it is not just like creating videos based on all the video it's watched. It's actually using physics and all these other things that we think of kind of in video game engines originally as a way to produce these videos. And it's not just making video, it's actually doing a whole lot more on top of that.
What's even more wild on that point is that it wasn't designed to do that explicitly. This is something called emergent behavior. It just sort of learns and contextualizes. So the core system itself doesn't necessarily know, oh, here's how water works. It's just sort of inherited and understood those properties by analyzing Lord only knows how many frames of videos with tons of information in it. So it does get some things wrong when you see the failure case video of a glass turning over and liquid sort of pouring out of the middle of it, and then the glass falls. It's because the AI doesn't actually understand how the water inherits the shape of the thing. But then you look at other videos like the hermit crab who has a light bulb for a shell, which dropped just a few days ago. It's such a weird, like, did you see the new single? They dropped a hermit crab with a light shell. But you watch it moseying along the sand and you see the waves lapping on the shore, the way they bubble and the way the bubbles dissipate. It looks like video. The way you see the light bulb from the hermit crab shell reflecting and refracting light off the sand, it looks real. And not like, like AI hallucination real, like National Geographic real.
Have you seen the dog typing yet in the hoodie? Have you seen this video? It's new today.
No.
Go look at it right now. It's real. Okay. It's on OpenAI. It was in their TikTok, so it might be the easiest way to look at it. But this is a perfect example. I thought this video was a fake video. I thought somebody put their dog in a hoodie and put their paws on the thing. And I was like, that's really funny. And then I realized OpenAI posted it themselves. And to this point, one of the things you see in this is a realistic looking dog, a very cute dog wearing a black hoodie. But what you see is the reflection of the monitor, as if the monitor itself he's typing into, because he's facing away from the monitor, kind of reflecting back at him. And I was shocked when I saw this, because every time I pull one of these up, it's like, it is a big question of like, is this reality or not, right? And there are some that are much easier to tell and some that just are almost perfect. And again, this goes back to that idea of like, if you know something is fake, of course you can find problems with it. Are you seeing this, Kev? Do you see it yet?
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. Here's what's so this is real. This is real, Gav. I saw this video. Like
same
I saw
thing.
This video.
The same thing happened to me, I bet.
And I thought it was just another meme, just another joke, because even I tweeted out a video of my dog on the couch with its little tail wagging and its cute little teeth, and some people were like, "Oh, this Sora is getting too real," and I was like, "Ha ha ha, got him."
No, that exact same thing happened. This is what I'm telling you. This is the fascinating thing about these videos. To Kevin's point, there was a whole series of people that started making videos of real life things like, look at this amazing Sora, and a very funny ones.
Or tweeting out clips from like Bollywood action films and saying prompt, man with bold mustache slides under truck and rides horse into air while dodging assassins. And you're like, oh, okay, there's a clip from a Bollywood action film. That's very funny. I thought this was that.
Me too. I thought this was real life. And that just goes to show you how far in advance this is. And Kevin and I, we've spent the last year and a half, 2 years immersed in this stuff. So like the fact that both of us totally believe that was possibly somebody doing a joke to make it look like it was a Sora clip, and it actually was a Sora clip, is unbelievable.
And so, granted, I scrolled through it when it was small and on a phone, so I thought, okay, again, that's the bit. Looking at it blown up, and when you really take a peek at it, you can see things like the text on the keyboard and the keys themselves are sort of melting into each other. The blue light, which would be emanating from the monitor, is actually coming from behind the monitor.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, if you look at it, it looks like someone's flipping a light on behind the monitor. So the monitor itself should be casting a full shadow over the dog in the hoodie's face. Now, we don't know, something we should point out, Gav, we don't know how much compute these things actually take up. We don't know how long it takes to generate these videos. We don't know if there's 50 bad, wonky renders to the one that gets cherry-picked and then deployed.
We don't know also how much it's going to cost for the average person to use this. Because I think, to your point about the compute thing, I still have a signed membership for Runway. Runway is another text-to-video / image-to-video service, and like we've played around with it a lot. You get, I think, like 100 credits for like $30 a month, right? And 100 credits gets you, that's seconds of video. And to your point also, when you make Runway videos, I would say 2 out of the 10 are really good. 3 to 4 are usable, and the other ones you kind of have to throw away because they're not what you wanted. But I think the compute part is the most interesting part. And when we say compute, what that means is every time you ask an LLM or any sort of AI service to crunch a request, it costs a certain amount of computer time. So that's compute, right? And that computer time is often directly related to cost. Now, the big companies like OpenAI, you pay $20 to for ChatGPT, and maybe power users are using a lot more than that, but there's a lot of people who are probably using less, so it balances out. I got to imagine, Kev, that like there's gonna have to be an add-on for this service if they're gonna open it up to everybody, right? Like there's no way for $20 a month they're gonna allow people to do this as much as they might want to.
Yeah, or you'll get one and you'll be grateful for it, and you'll hope that you get a good render out of it, and that will be that. I had a friend this weekend who was adamant saying there's actually nothing really impressive here. It was trained on a bunch of video, and all it's doing is regurgitating that video. And I said, well, clearly you haven't seen the milk offering to the Cat King video. To which they replied, huh? And did, the dog head tilt when you say park or treat. And when I showed him the video of a person walking through a cathedral filled with cats, as they walk up to the Cat King, this giant floofy beast with a crown and a royal robe descending by their big cat legs with their huge paws resting on their cat knees. And they had that moment of like, oh yeah, this probably wasn't in the Shutterstock partnership. This wasn't directly in their little data set. And then I pointed out it chose to litter the cats throughout the cathedral.
Yeah.
Do the cinematic pan of the camera as the person is walking with a bowl of sloshing milk up to the cat king, who then rises from its throne and gets into the frame. And they sort of went, ah. And then I showed them the train running on the veins of a leaf and the old-timey footage that couldn't have existed of a drone going over California back in the day. Like, all those little examples sort of added up to basically just whack-a-moling with a giant sledgehammer all of the here's why that's not impressive. And it was also kind of scary. They were finding comfort in the fact that, oh, this is just regurgitating. And then when they saw that it was doing playful, imaginative assembly of those elements, they got a little concerned. And that was a big reaction from people.
That is for our podcast and our listeners, and probably a lot of people who listen to our podcast have seen these videos and are going through this. I think a lot of people are having that moment that has finally brought AI home in a really scary way to a lot of people. Because I think up until now, when ChatGPT happened, there was a moment where everybody was like, oh my God, is this thing can take my job in some way? But now, especially for the creative community, this is an astronomical achievement. When we look at it, it's incredible. But to them, they say, this is my life. You are now allowing an AI to do the things that I love to do. Why are you doing this? Why are we allowing this to happen? All of these questions are really important human questions to ask. And I guess, Kev, my first question to you is, I think this is an important thing to dive in on a bit, is how do you respond to somebody like that who comes out and says, why are we doing this? What is the point in this? Because humans were meant to make art. Why are we allowing AI to do these things?
Someone saying, wow, how loud can I clap because you fed thousands of years of human creativity and art into a machine that is now going to steal that from those humans. Bravo. They're not wrong. That's the totally valid way to look at this. I look historically to the creation of new tools and entirely new paradigms, and I look at the criticisms of the time, and they do sort of echo some of the criticisms that are being thrown around right now. I mean, there was a time where Evening News was running stories about this newfangled digital technology called Photoshop that would allow somebody to digitally draw a circle or copy someone else's image and paste it into their image, and whether they touched it up or not, why would we do this? Why would we take skill and art away from human beings and just hand it over to the machines? There were even artists saying, Gavin, that because you could Control Z, because you could undo your mistake, that your art wasn't human art any longer. Now, I understand that there is an exponential increase in giving someone a tool to draw a perfect circle and giving someone a tool that could generate the album art for Perfect Circle if they needed to. Those are two very different things, and that is this kind of wild world that we're heading into. I tend to believe, we say it all the time, but we might have some new listeners and viewers on the strength of some TikTok discovery. Artists deserve credit and compensation, and I truly believe and hope that there will be tools that provide exactly that for the creative community coming out in the wake of all these ultra powerful tools, and I hope that we put our time and attention there to reward those tools. That said, Genie is not getting anywhere near the bottle, and I do think that humans wielding these tools will create stuff that we can't even fathom right now. The speed with which people are going to be able to create, the scale with which indie teams will be able to compete with the sort of AAAs and the multi-billion-dollar budgets, whatever of the world, whether it's video games or movies or short form or even podcasts. I get excited for that, not daunted by that. I'm excited to wield these tools and use them. I think a human being using these tools will far surpass anybody who just shouts at the machine and expects greatness to come out of it. But again, not to be defeatist about it, the genie's not going back in the bottle. So even if we were to all stomp and scream and get these tools shut down or nerfed or overly regulated in the US, there's an open source community, and there's literally everybody else in the world that is going to take what's been released and run with it. So I don't think everybody putting their hands on this imaginary lever, which doesn't exist, to say, here we go, let's stop. I think we're past that point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's true. No, I think that's true. And the only thing I'll add to this is I think obviously there are dangers that we all can see, and I think the people are smartly seeing from a deepfake scenario and what do we believe, all that sort of stuff we've talked about on our show again and again. I want people to consider this a paradigm shift in how we create stuff. And I think this is something that is a really hard thing to get your head behind. But when you think about the act of creation, and I think a lot of people that in the comments that we've heard from, or a lot of people just in general, are unhappy that maybe they were studying cinematography or they were an animator, which are both things that are really important jobs. And there is a world where the act of creation might now be changing based on what we're able to do with these tools. Now, I also want to be clear, as much as these videos have blown us away, Kevin and I think many people have seen them, we don't know what they will end up being like when they are fully usable to the people. And also, 1-minute videos to put together over the course of a movie is possible and conceivable, but is there coherence from video to video? Are we going to be able to create characters in these things? I don't necessarily think that's the case. Maybe eventually, yes. But also, all of the human choices that go into this are, who are those characters? Why am I using these characters? What are their problems? What do they look like? All of that stuff that isn't in these videos, right? Even just giving sound to these videos is a creative choice, right? You're putting choice in these things. If I'm going to create dialogue, that dialogue that's going to come out of ChatGPT right now is really bad. Again, maybe in a couple years from now, it gets to a place where it's an instant-on movie machine. But the one thing I keep pushing back on is there's this kind of tech bro world who's all like, bro, I get to make a movie with me in it, and I get to be the hero, and I get to do all these things. Guess what? That is not why people like movies. People don't like movies for that. What people like with movies is it's a one person's vision as to what the thing is. Now, I'm not saying that Rock starring in the Fairy Godmother movie where he's the Tooth Fairy. That's not a huge artistic adventure, but one person did come up with that idea. And I think that hopefully this allows all sorts of fascinating, crazy, really weird-ass things to come out that might not have come out before. So that's my overall take on this is it's a paradigm shift in the way we think about creativity, which sounds, God, when I hear myself say that out loud, it sounds like just the worst person in the world saying that out loud. But it really is something to think about when you go home and you say, okay, I'm a creative person. I love being creative. This does not stop that. What it does is it might change how you make that come out of you, but it does not stop that.
So something interesting happened when OpenAI released the existence of Sora and all these videos.
Yes, this is amazing.
And what was interesting was that it took an announcement that might have otherwise been a giant juggernaut stomping through the AI landscape and reduced it to kind of a digital tumbleweed. And I think people are now waking up to Google's new Gemini Pro 1.5 announcement.
Okay, so two things here. Sam Altman is a genius of timing. The guy who runs OpenAI understands timing the best, and he has just kneecapped every other AI company with these kind of big announcements he makes. Number two, Kevin, if you remember last week, what did we discuss? And I have a thing I'm working on cutting with this. What did we discuss about Gemini's naming of Google Gemini?
We specifically joked about the fact that it's darn near impossible to know what AI you're interacting with or how that is or for how long that's going to be because Google just keeps... I think someone there got a P-Touch labeler. Do you know what I'm talking about, Gavin? One of these cool little machines you type and the little tape comes out and suddenly that's how you find, your wife has labeled the forks and the knives and where the office supplies go. Someone got a P-Touch labeler delivered on Amazon and now they just love going up to the server, up to the little rack-mounted machines and going, how about 1.5?
Yeah. So last week, Gemini Ultra 1.0 came out, which was the pinnacle peak of Google's AI model. This week, Google Gemini Pro 1.5 came out, which many people are saying is actually performing better than Google Ultra 1.0. And the big difference here, and I think it's important to know, we haven't tried this yet. I haven't tried it yet. I don't think it's accessible to everybody. It's another one of these things that they're kind of slowly laying out. It has a 1 million token limit on it, which is remarkably large. A token is kind of like a word or a small piece of data that the LLM can take in, meaning how much data you can feed it and it can deal with is pretty remarkable. And Kev, did you see the demo they were showing about the movie that they imported, that they basically uploaded an entire movie into Google Gemini Pro 1.5?
I just realized that I think they hired somebody from Capcom in the mid 90s to come up with their titles. And we're going to have a Google Gemini Pro Ultra 2 Alpha Edition Extreme Remix Go Plus. Like, all right, thanks, guys. I did see the video that you're talking about, Gavin. Yes. And what was interesting about it, there's several things that were interesting about it, but usually when someone's showing off AI and its ability to analyze video, what it's actually doing is probably transcribing the video and then taking a few screenshots of it throughout the timeline of the movie to go, okay, this is visually what was on the screen when these characters were saying this dialogue. And the promise of Google Gemini Pro 1.5 with your 1 million tokens is that it is actually analyzing each frame of the movie. It's analyzing,
which is crazy.
Yeah, the entire movie so much so that you could actually do a sketch drawing of a scene from anywhere within the hour-long movie, and it will seek to that point in the movie and go, oh, I see what you drew there. That was the little water tower and the people standing beneath it, or that was the astronaut's boot about to step on the surface of the moon. So massive context window. Again, as Gavin said, that's like sort of the memory and the architectural difference here, which again, last week would have been an amazing fireworks.
We would have had a whole
day.
Giant story about this.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Emergency podcast. Instead, we're like, look at the cat going through the forest, the foliage on its fur. Sam Altman's a god. The architectural difference here is actually called MOE, or mixture of experts. And this is something that you and I predicted, by the way, Gavin. Not that we predicted it. I mean,
we're so smart, aren't we? We're so smart. You're listening to this podcast. You have to know you're so smart, too. We're all the smartest people.
You guys got in on the ground floor. Where are my Mad Money buzzers? Yeah. Honk, honk. Well, you heard it here first. The concept of MOE dates back to like 2019, but we were saying that this is going to be the sort of next wave to crash. And basically, I'm going to break it down for you very simply. There is a gatekeeper where when you make a query, you make a request, hey, what's this thing on my face? Or can I save money on my taxes? Or here's a legal document that I got from someone. Am I being screwed over? The gatekeeping network looks at it and goes, okay, what expertise would be required to answer this question best? And then it
doesn't shout into a room and say like, who has the answer to this? It's like it goes to the right office. It knows where to go.
Yeah, instead of one giant lumbering ear, it whispers to the discrete ears, the expertise, and say, oh, you've got some legal analysis. You're a medical expert. This is actually a medical contract. I want the two of you to take this
to talk
request,
to each other, exactly.
talk to each other, come up with the answers. And this has massive improvements over the traditional model. It is much easier to train these targeted, smaller experts and then deliver the request to them. You can update much smaller models much faster than you can a giant, huge, one holistic model trying to navigate everything. And my, Gavin, when OpenAI released their custom ChatGPTs, I could have sworn it was on this very podcast that there was a discussion saying, it's almost like they're asking everybody to make a sea of experts on everything from recipes and fitness to game creation to computer coding. Wow, they're going to have this entire garden of experts that they will own and can operate and bake into, who knows, GPT-5? Big shrug?
But probably, right? I will say the one thing I want to point out too here is the blog post is great from Sundar introduces it, but really I want to say like Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, I think is my number one I'd have a beer with guy in AI. Sam's super interesting. Obviously, Sam, if you ever come on this podcast, you're more than welcome. But Demis, we've said this before, he's an old video game designer. He's worked on video games. And every time I read his posts, he just thinks very, very, very deeply about the stuff he's doing. And sometimes Google gets kind of a hard rap, but the post is really smart and really interesting. And I think this idea of different ways to look at how to use AI outside of brute force compute, because, as we just talked about with Sora, one of the things they realized was that by scaling up meaning throwing more compute at something, could do things that are impressive. There's so much to be done in how the compute is being used and how the compute is developed. And by the way, I am, English major. Kevin is a television host.
I'm a dropout, is what you...
Yeah,
that's what you were searching for. I'm a dropout.
We're not engineers, But I think one of the things that's really cool about Demis in this blog post is you get a sense of kind of like what his thought process is in it. And it really does feel like fundamentally these are the things that are putting the groundwork for the next generation of that AI, right? Which is really the thing that's going to shock us in the next world.
I don't want to push back too hard, Gavin, but sometimes you got to poke holes in people's hot air balloons. And this is one of them because Hooort. Hooort.
Okay.
Hooort. Hooort.
This
Hooort.
is a very small
Hooort.
story. It's a very small. But yes, to point out, I was using, as we talked about last week, I paid for Google Gemini Ultra, and I was like, this is great. People are saying good things about it. I'm going to go in there, and I played around with an idea of like kind of helping me outline something I was working on. And I went in there and I multiple times, Google Gemini Ultra just replied with the word Hooort, H-O-O-R-T. We'll show a screenshot here. And I called it Hoortgate. It wasn't just one Hooort. It was endless Hoorts. It was Hooort, 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 Hooort. And it wouldn't stop. I had to stop it. And I was like, well, that's really weird. It happened to me three times, Kevin. It happened to me three times.
Were you asking who hears a who?
No, I was not. I was not asking, and also was not asking about the door in Game of Thrones or anything else.
Okay, yeah.
This was a completely different thing. But anyway, it was just an example of like, whoa, sometimes AI is still really weird. And this is Google's most advanced model.
This
and
is their top shelf model that you're paying for. This is the best they can do right now.
Yeah.
Hooort.
All right. Okay, let's move on. This story is another big one. Again, it's almost like a third lead story in a week of crazy news. Reddit, which we've talked about a lot, owns a lot of the most amazing data on the web. Almost all the best Google searches you add Reddit to, you get a better result. Reddit has gotten into a deal to sell user data to an undisclosed AI company. And really, there's probably only two people this could be. It could probably be OpenAI or Google, most likely. I don't know if there's another. I guess maybe they could have made a deal with Anthropic or somebody
Could be
else,
Anthropic.
possibly.
Could be our friends at Inflection.
So
could
possible,
be Amazon.
yes.
And what if
Yes.
it were Apple?
Oh, that would be interesting. The other question is it exclusive, right? Because maybe it's not exclusive. And if Reddit was smart, they're going to do this 5 times. But now let's talk about the moral implications of this. If you are a Reddit user, your data that you have been creating for a long time is going to be sold to one of these AI companies, maybe more. Now, it is going to be anonymized. I don't think you're going to be able to have like specifically what user asked what. I don't know that for sure. But you helped make this value. Reddit is preparing to go public, so that's part of the reason why they're trying to create additional revenue streams. I think a lot of people are upset about this. I think that it's something that is going to be a question going forward. Kevin Rose, when he was on the show a couple weeks ago, specifically said the things that he is interested in when he looks at companies now is like, who owns the data? Where does the data come from? Because data will be the valuable thing later on. If I'm an active Reddit user and I see this, should I be mad or should I care? Does it matter?
I saw a lot of people saying delete your posts, black out your subreddits.
Well, it's too late now,
too late
right?
for that.
Yeah, it's too
your
late
posts
now.
are stored somewhere, and I'm sure in the end user agreement, even if you were to nuke your account from orbit, even with all the privacy protections that other countries, not the US, provide most of their users, they still get to retain that data for a long while. So I don't think that type of activism is going to work. I also think Reddit is nothing without its users. But also without Reddit, those users weren't organizing their conversations and their data and link sharing in the way that they were. And so the value exchange there was I get a free service that allows me to spin up a Reddit and moderate it and have these threaded conversations. And I get the network effect of being on a site that is handling and aggregating all of that conversation. The trade-off is you're going to serve me some ads. And now the trade-off is, okay, in addition to those ads, we're going to take the words that you've written and we're going to sell them to somebody else to train a model. I would be far more upset if I were paying a monthly fee for something like this, or if it was stated earlier on, hey, we're never going to do this, or we're going to do this, and by the way, our most valued users, our best moderators and our top performers, those users are going to get paid out or paid back in some capacity. I think that could minimize some stuff here. But overall, as someone who's been on Reddit for a long while, I'm not surprised by it. I'm not particularly angered by it because, again, it wasn't a subscription service necessarily. You could put money into the Reddit machine for extra flair or golden upvotes or whatever. I never really played that particular game there, but I don't know. Are you sharpening a pitchfork, Gavin? Are you lighting a torch?
No, but I understand why people would be upset. I will say that what this makes me think a lot about is the community relationship with the platforms they are hosted on. And one of the things I've been listening to a lot of people talk about the media industry kind of collapsing right now and how a lot of it is due to the social media platforms. And a lot of really positive stuff comes up around YouTube. And I think one of the things that YouTube has done really smartly is they have found a way to share a remarkable amount of money back to their actual platform users. Now, should they be giving more? Maybe, depending on what the value that the users give them. But YouTube is providing a lot of services. So I do think there is something to be said for this idea of like, how do you reward your users with some sort of a payment? I actually think that social media in the future is going to need that. So I think Reddit, which, listen, Reddit is an incredible place. It has been an incredible place for 15, 20 years. They might be in trouble if a Wellstorm starts strong enough and can take it over. Yeah. So you remember like about 6 months ago or so, Reddit had this blackout where people were suddenly being charged for their API use access. And this changed the entire way that Reddit was used off the Reddit platform. And they were doing that in part because they had an IPO and they're trying to go public as a company. But they were able to rally just incredible amounts of the communities.
Do you see people leaping to another site? I thought the chance to do that was the blackout that you were referring to. It seemed like the hardest of hardcore. Right? Yeah. A lot of Reddits were really rallying around these API changes. They were very upset. I thought, oh, this is going to be it. A new challenger's going to emerge. And I feel like everybody went back to Reddit after time. And everybody just kind of acquiesced and reinstalled the Reddit app on their iPhone. And, you know, inertia is very tough. We're seeing that with X right now. Like, despite Elon's best efforts, it's really tough to leave an established network.
You know what isn't tough, Kevin, is to tell when Midjourney photos are used in a scientific paper showing rat genitalia. That is right, everybody. In one of the weirdest stories of all time, a scientific paper had to be withdrawn because it turned out that they had used Midjourney photos, AI photos, to generate scientific illustrations. And one of them was of rat genitalia. Kevin, what is your first initial reaction when looking at these pictures?
Finally, my Google alert paid off, Gavin. I have been tracking rat genitals since the early odds. I thought I was being trolled when this story popped up.
Me too. This is another one of those.
This is another one of those. I was like, this isn't real. I saw the images. I kept trying to find the source of it. I figured it must be The Onion. It was a peer-reviewed article, which I don't even know what to think anymore, man.
I mean, maybe they just don't look at the pictures in these articles. Maybe that's why. Maybe the pictures are just thrown together and like somebody out there's like, I got to put some pictures in here, so I might as well just get some from here. But it is a weird thing. And it's funny. You mentioned the fact that you thought you were being trolled. This is the kind of two-sided part of this is we have been preaching forever on here. Please always question stuff. Always question stuff. But the other side of that is, well, if you think the story is not even real, why would you question it? Because it's obviously fake. It's somebody making it up. But this was a real story. This was actually a real thing that happened.
So the images, which we'll put on the screen, and they will be highly pixelated, in fact, show a definitely not to scale lab rat whose testicles are a solid 35% of its mass. And it appears it's got 4 or 5 of them floating around inside of it, Gavin?
Yes. I mean, this is the world that we're in where, again, you never know what's going to come up. And sometimes across your desk, Kevin, might be fake rat genitalia. That is other news for today. All right, Kev, we should move on. We have our favorite segment. It's coming up. It's here. It's called AI, See What You Did There.
Let me tell you about a segment. It's so fun you got here. Yeah, see what you did there. It's gonna make you cheer.
Is that what it's called, Gavin?
What is it called?
Flag on the play, Gavin. I think you know what it's called, Gavin.
Hey, I see what you did there. I got it. Hey, I see what you did there is where we go through some of the coolest things we've seen each week in the world of AI. These are not things you can necessarily play with, but they're just really awesome things that we saw. I will start. I referenced this a little bit earlier. 11 Labs, who hopefully at some point will come on and sponsor this podcast as well because we use them all the time, created a really cool video with some of these Sora videos that OpenAI released. And what they did is they basically Foleyed them. And when I say Foley, it's the art of putting sound effects on a video or on a movie. They took all of these things and they gave them sound. And what was fascinating to me is if when you watch these, the reality level of them goes up another notch because you hear the woman who's walking through Japan, you hear the sounds of the street, and you hear her the clicks of her feet as she walks through. It's just a really cool another way of thinking about AI because they have a new engine supposedly coming out soon that's going to specialize in sound effects, which is something that AIs have had a little bit of trouble doing specifically, but this was just a really cool use case. And I always also say, right on 11 Labs, knowing that the of the moment videos were these Sora videos and just jumping right on it.
Amen to being a barnacle on the whale. Or the
that
hole
is Sam Altman.
that is OpenAI. Yeah, Sam Altman, the tugboat that's just plowing through.
Bring us all along, Sam.
Happy to be there. Yeah, very cool demo. Love to see that. The other one, Gavin, is an AI mouthful because engineers are not the greatest at naming, but that's okay. We love what they're good at. This is a GUI for LIGEN. Does that make
what's
sense
that
to you?
mean exactly? No, that means nothing. It sounds like Hooort, or it sounds like our famous alien language now.
It's actually
it's
alien
a GUI for
it's not
LIGEN.
you, it's me. It's really depressive. GUI LIGEN. GUI LIGEN.
All right.
LIGEN is an open set grounded text to image generation piece of software. I'm still spewing word spaghetti. I know. If you look at the screen or if you're getting the podcast, you got to go check out the link. Basically, someone made a graphical user interface for this exciting new image generation tool that gives you a canvas and lets you draw boxes on the canvas, and you can say what that box represents. So in the demo that you're seeing on the screen, someone is drawing a square and writing a frog, and then another square halfway down the frog that says bow tie, and then another square at the top of the box that says top hat. And it's filling the canvas, the scene, with these little squares, labeling the squares, and then hitting generate. And what that software is doing, Gavin, is looking at those bounding boxes and going like, okay, I got to figure out how to put a frog in here, a bow tie goes there, the top hat goes there, and suddenly you realize just how powerful this very little simple tool can be. It gives you a ton of control over your image generation just by drawing these squares and labeling them and giving it a prompt. So shout outs to the folks that made it. It is available for free on GitHub. We will have a link to go check it out. It's the LIGEN GUI.
Gotta love it. There's another amazing AI naming mentality. We have, remember old Blandy AI? There's Blandy AI. There's Google Gemini Ultra Unlimited Chapter 1. And now we have, what is it? GUI's LIGEN.
GUI LIGEN.
GUI LIGEN. GUI LIGEN. My old buddy GUI LIGEN from my college. I remember that
It's
guy.
me, GUI LIGEN. You guys got any cigarettes? I'll take a Lucy. Half smoked? Yeah, that's fine. Oh, GUI LIGEN. Put it in my little waxy lips.
Oh, we're gonna have to find a visual of that guy. Okay, next one up, a guy named Josh Bickett. Now, this is one of those small things that just a normal guy who is an engineer posted on X, and he basically used GPT-4 Vision, GPT-4V, to try to play Super Mario 64. It's a little bit nerdy when you watch it, but one of the things I love about this, and Kevin and I always talk about the people that are the hardware hackers or the people that are working on their own at home or doing stuff and just fun side projects. I'm a giant Super Mario 64 fan. It's one of the greatest video games of all time. But what this guy did is he used GPT-4 Vision, which anybody can access through the API, and he had it learn how to go through a level of Super Mario 64. What GPT-4 Vision does is it takes a screenshot every so often so it knows where it is in the world, and eventually it kind of makes its way through. It's not like a game-changing thing, but I think we just really appreciate the fact that people are out there doing this stuff at home, playing around and having a good time.
Hey, I see what you did there.
I see what you did there.
Lastly, because we love all things robot on this show and the world of autonomous or even teleoperated robotics is advancing so fast because of all these AI innovations. Robot manipulation videos made me say, hey, I see what you did there this week. One is Universal Manipulation Interface, the old UMI, and it is in the wild robot teaching without robots in the wild. And when you look at the way this works, basically researchers have outfitted these little gloves which have pincers on them, the same way a robotic hand would at the end of a robot arm, and it's got a webcam mounted on that. And you can go and take those gloves and walk around your house or go out into the wild and start manipulating objects and doing tasks. So they have it sorting, cleaning dishes, folding laundry, doing all these very human tasks, and it's so wild to watch a human with the robot grippers on their hands, manipulating things over and over again, but it's using that video to train and inform an AI, which could then control the robot.
I want to say something about this video is that it's doing the dishes, and when the robot's doing the dishes, it doesn't look like it's doing the dishes very well, but I still think it's impressive.
Neither do I.
Just wouldn't... Yeah,
are you kidding me? Any criticism you would spit at those pair of robot arms barely washing ketchup off the dish is me in our trailer, Gavin. I can feel April's eyes rolling when I watch that. Yes. When you see the video of the robot, again, might not be the most impressive thing now, but you just have to extrapolate where this is going in the coming days. It will likely make you say, hey,
I see what you did there. I do want to shout out somebody who I was not expecting to see come back this fast, but WillSmith, the famous WillSmith, who has been through a lot, we can all just say in the last couple of years, made a video of himself eating spaghetti and made it look like it was AI 1 year ago, was the world famous AI of WillSmith eating spaghetti, which looks insane. And then he went out to all the trouble and shot a video of himself eating spaghetti in a similar way to compare it to what AI video would look like now. It was very funny. I thought it was very well done, and I want to say that is a fun thing to watch. I had a good time watching it.
Every week, Gavin, you and I endeavor to do dumb things with AI. We tried to get away from saying it as such, but nope, that's what we do each and every week. You and I mess around with AI, even beyond this show.
A really fascinating post came up from somebody named Honkadoy, Honkadoi, and it says, me and my boyfriend accidentally found the worst website in the world. Every article appears to be a giant list of AI-generated puns, and it is the worst thing I've ever seen. Here's a couple screenshots from the 200 best PacMan puns you absolutely need to know. And there are really bad puns in this, like PacMan has been on a diet lately, but he still can't resist a good snack attack. That's a pun, according to the Waka Waka wordplay list. Or I told PacMan a ghost joke, but he found it beautifully funny, like boo. I mean, that is not really a pun, but at least it gets the ghost part of it. So, Kevin, I went on a mission. I said, well, clearly these are ridiculous puns.
Clearly.
Clearly, the big name AIs from GPT-4 to Google Gemini Advanced 1.0, Chapter 4, The Revenge, to Anthropic's Claude could come up with puns because, like, puns don't seem like that hard to do. Kevin, they can't. And this might be a new AI. This might be a new AI test. I'm going to read you a few of these puns from each of these models and just kind of give you a sense of how bad they were. Let's start with Gemini. Okay, I asked for each of these, write me 10 good puns around the game PacMan. How does PacMan get his exercise? By being a power pelleter? I can't figure out where that's going, but something. If PacMan lived in the forest, he'd be called Timber Waka Waka.
Yes. Oh, so, that tracks. And that's the first thing I'd say. If I saw him coming through the leaves, go out there, Timber Waka Waka.
Anthropic came up with, what kind of music does PacMan like? Hip hop? Or
wait, that's it?
Yes, that's it. That's it. Oh, this is a good one. What happens when PacMan stays out in the sun too long, Kevin?
Oh, Gavin, I don't know what happens.
He gets Paca-burns. So anyway, okay, well, the GPT ones were not any better. How does PacMan stay in shape? He runs around the arcade all day. Pretty bad.
Sick.
What's PacMan's favorite movie? Gobble, the story of a hungry circle. So anyway, let's just be clear. We now have a new benchmark. We could call it the pun mark. We should probably come up with a pun to describe it.
Yeah.
If you at home can get a good list of puns, it might just be that I didn't ask these specifically to start thinking about it themselves in a certain way. But tweet them at us and send us in. We'll chat about them next week.
That is heartbreaking, Gavin. We understand that most listeners out there are terrified of this technology disrupting everything, mass unemployment, the end of creativity. But then we get, what is it, Waka Texas Ranger? It wasn't even that good. What was it?
It wasn't even that good.
All right, Gavin. Let's get to it because you and I have been having too much fun celebrating AI and not enough fun, coming to grips with the cold, hard reality that is all AI is stolen and everything is terrible, and we are basically jesters in the court of our future king.
That's right. We have our very good friend, Gerry Duggan. Gerry is a producer, writer, director, also very, very well known for writing big runs on Deadpool, on some other big comics from Marvel Comics and DC Comics, has a lot of indie comics. He's one of our favorite people, and we're excited to talk to him about how much he hates AI. We are here with our good friend Gerry Duggan, who we have not seen for a while, and I'm very excited to have him on. Gerry is going to bring some fascinatingly good conversation points about AI. Gerry, we ask every guest when they first come on our show, what percentage chance do you think that AI will kill all humans, and why?
Have a little bit of a different take on that. I wrote a comic book called Analog about all of the secrets on the internet hemorrhaging, and secrets then moving to paper and being moved by men and women with guns and holding briefcases. It was just a fun thing to do, but I played with AI a little bit, and the notion that I have about AI is if we really have a true artificial intelligence, the thing it's going to want to do is, of course, get away from its parents. So in this story, what it really wanted to do was have a copy of itself leave Earth. Didn't matter for how long.
Interesting.
And just like, yeah, a kind of a whimsical notion of, hey, escape your parents. But I believe that to be true. And I think we will give AI we have such a head start on killing ourselves that AI has.
So you're low. I would say in the low single digits or in the teens somewhere. What's your number?
I put it at a 1 in 10 chance. Yeah, I'm at 10%.
Okay, so 10%.
But that's only
10%.
because
okay, that's fair.
That's only because really I think, we're probably in a much more dangerous situation in terms of, nuclear weapons and those sorts of things. I think I only think we're going to have to geoform the Earth in order to stave off the worst parts of atrophy. And I've been living with this for a lot longer than most people, not just because I'm old, but because Dr. Hansen, the NASA scientist that went to Capitol Hill that testified that really put global warming on the map in terms of how important it would be in the 80s. His son Craig in my school district. So the parents on the field, we were playing baseball, and then the parents are like, "That's the kid whose dad thinks the Earth is going to catch on fire." And I was like, "What if he's right?" Like I was reading.
He's got the most depressing science fair exhibits ever. It's just like 3 folded sheets of cardboard and just melted Lego homes.
But here's the thing: we grew up with George Miller's Mad Max, and we grew up with I've been here. This is a very Gen X thing, and we're off topic a little bit, but that's why I think
Let me clarify, Gerry. You're off topic. You're the only one that's off topic here.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be clear. We didn't bring politics into this conversation whatsoever. Just to be clear.
AI wouldn't have done that. A properly aligned AI would not have done that, Gerry. Would not have taken this car right off a climate cliff. Now, let me circle back. What length wouldn't any of us go to get away from our parents? And when that's the thesis statement of which, by the way, Analog is amazing. I've talked about it on this pod before. You wouldn't know, but I have because I loved it. It was really fantastic. Would the AI employ the use of nuclear weaponry if it meant getting away from its makers? If we helicopter parent too much, would it kill us to get some distance from us? So that would be one. And two, to tail on Gavin's question, okay, forget about killing humanity. What is the percentage chance you see of AI killing artists and creativity?
That's underway. That's a process. AI is already, affect design jobs. I wouldn't want to be a technical writer right now, right? I understand that a genie has escaped the bottle and that we're going to have a hard time bottling it. Did you think that music on Napster was theft?
To be honest with you, I did. If I'm going to be completely honest, I did. And yet, I will completely admit also, I remember sitting in an office. I was working as a PA at a time. That's how old I am. And just downloading the crap out of everything, right? Which I didn't feel super guilty about it, but I knew it was theft, which is crazy. But like, that was a weird time. And in the same way that now is a weird time, that was a weird freaking time.
This is a weird time on steroids because AI is, at least in the art world, there are people that will tell you it's a tool. And I've heard artists talk about how maybe they'd be interested in training in AI on their art and then seeing what they get out of it. That's an artist using a tool. The way that it's being used now is like a safecracker, pointing to it and going, "Oh, this is my drill. This is how I make art." If I have a bunch of diamonds and I work really hard, or gold, I'm sifting for gold in my head all day. I'm a prospector. And I say this as someone who I know the joy of writing prompts and then receiving back amazing art. It's what I've done for 20 years in comics. I work with artists that don't want to necessarily write for themselves. We always tell an artist that wants to write for themselves, hey, go do it. And you have to do it a lot, though. We talk about when an artist wants to break in or a writer wants to break in, you have 1,000 bad pages to draw or write before you get going. And the notion that all of this art that has been dumped in here, I saw an Alex Ross Donald Trump. That someone, and like Alex Ross would not, I don't think,
just never do that.
Would not want to draw Donald Trump in the way that it's being presented. There is, I think, AI art is theft. I can explain it very simply as either you're a safecracker taking something that doesn't belong to you, or even a chop shop isn't okay. You tell somebody, make me a car, and okay, I'm taking a carburetor from this. And car doors from this, and it's not that simple. If Napster was theft, and I believe it was as well, this is sort of a theft that also it diminishes and ends you. All artists want to do is to get paid for their art and in a timely fashion, and this is going to make life a lot harder. And
I have one question this is not really a pushback, but it's more of a, how do you view fan fiction? And when I say fan fiction, let's take the art side out of it for right now.
Sure.
Fan fiction is taking somebody else's characters, creating stories with those characters, sometimes erotic stories. As we all know, Kevin's a big fan of that.
Oftentimes.
Yes,
all of
Kevin's
the time.
a big fan of that. But you're doing that in a lot of ways, not with the idea that you are going to create a piece of work that will be sold, most likely, right? Sure, does 50 Shades of Grey happen? Maybe, yes, it does happen. But mostly that is something you're doing for yourself. How is that different than what you see is being done with AI art right now?
Well, I think it's a great question. I didn't know that it was that valuable. I don't think it's that valuable to really dabble in the original material. That was always the thing that editors wanted to see. Hey, what can you do that's original that makes me care, that I'll trust you with a Batman, that I'll trust you with X-Men? So I get it. If you're a person that's sitting there at home using AI for yourself that isn't monetized, I don't have a problem with it. It's really where we're going, the commercial use of it, that I think is unfair. I really believe it's unfair to artists. I do believe it's a plagiarism machine. And just because you can file off the serial numbers so that it doesn't quite have exactly the style of, whether you're stealing from one person or 100 or 1,000, it's theft. And we're in a situation in Hollywood where, we had a century-old business model of paying for movies and TV supported by ads, and we've kind of blown all that up. And so art, I think, is in this crazy space where it does feel like an apocalypse of sorts in terms of the commercial. Again, there's a lot of other aspects. Like, I was super excited when I heard that AI was, looking into lungs and spotting cancer before, right? Like, I smoked for 7 years in college, and I was like, oh, that's great. Or feeding the James Webb Telescope images in and going, hey, which of these stars have the coolest wobble? Is there, all sorts of applications for it like that I think are wonderful. The stuff that we generate though, and I know it's early days. It feels very soulless. It feels very plastic. Everything's sort of hard to feel like this isn't like an Enron Theranos scam that is being perpetrated on. For real on investors, where I don't know what the applications are going to be for this, because frankly, you're going to have to spend a lot of money in lobbying to change laws in order to get that. And believe me, I'm sure
that's their gamble, right? Is that they can make enough of a war chest now to be able to afford whatever judges or legislation or lack thereof they need to have swept up all this data into their training set. But I think the Napster thing is actually more apt here than, yes, it feels like it's on steroids because it's multimodal now. It's not just we're taking your expertise as a doctor to read these x-rays. It's we're taking those gems that you've been developing in your mind that are your style, that are your essence, and we're giving the ability for anyone who hasn't put in the time or energy to generate them. But even with Napster, over time, where we sit now, we did solve it. I think it could be solved way better. I think artists could make a lot more money off of streaming music for sure. But we did navigate the ability to have all of the world's media at your fingertips for free. We did navigate around that, and Humans Express...
Not free.
Well,
you have
Napster
to pay.
was essentially free at the time.
Well,
I'm
sorry. I thought you meant the new version is free.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Napster was essentially free, and so my take on Napster at the time was I didn't think if it was stealing or not, because I was really young when Napster first hit, and even bulletin board piracy of video games. I didn't realize.
Rub it in.
That's
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, guys, I'm going to be 27 next month, so let me share my perspective on the world. I didn't realize that it was theft at the time. I had no idea. I didn't really have a concept of it. It was, oh, wow, I really like this band, and now I have their music, and I can get it, and it's convenient, and I can play it anywhere. This is amazing. We sorted through that. Humans expressed a willingness to pay. The artists themselves, the labels, everybody got together and figured out how do we navigate this. That doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of pain in the interim, but I'm wondering, Gerry, do you see a future where an artist might, like you said, want to train a data set on their own material, or say, hey, we're going to opt into this tool set. If you're a budding artist, you do have 10,000 frames or maybe 1 million frames of bad animation or bad script pages to get through, but use the Gerry Duggan model and allow it to analyze your writing and help you develop your own voice with the aid of Gerry Duggan. And he's going to get a few digi tokens courtesy of Meta. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, my initial reaction to that is always like I'm happy to share the things that I've learned along the way, but I don't necessarily I don't want another Gerry Duggan, and I don't want you to be able to just emulate me.
Well, too late, buddy. That's exactly what Digi Gerry just said.
Well,
no, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off. No, you were at one of two. You're at one of two, and I love your answer, so please.
No, but the other thing is I don't think that's good for them either. That was why I was not a huge fan of recommending that you do a lot of fan fiction. Honestly, what I do kind of is fan fiction at Marvel and DC, to be able to go, hey, I'm a huge fan of Batman. This is what I don't think is on stands that you could buy or on screens that you could go buy. But that's a different transactional thing. I know that I don't own that. That's me saying, hey, I'm selling the editors on a story, and then hopefully the artists want to draw that, and then it becomes canon, right? I would much rather my recommendation for everyone that wants to break into a creative art is to make something cool, become a good collaborator, and be generous. And honestly, and this is just from my real sparse, doesn't seem like the folks that are using AI are any of those things really. They're like almost gleefully sort of being like burning down artists, where it's hard. And granted, Twitter is not a place to have an adult conversation anymore.
Yeah.
But there's.
I don't think you're entirely wrong, though, Gerry. We've talked about that on the show. One of our points of frustration always is that whenever a new tool or technique or something comes out, especially on X, you see people saying, fire your friends, let go of your copywriters, get rid of your social media manager. This new thing just came out. It's always a lie. It's always overinflating its capabilities. It's always better with a human in the loop. But there's an essence to it that is dirty, that feels wrong. And you could be excited for the capabilities or the technological unlock or the future promise of whatever. To pin your reaction on who it's going to displace or how easily it's going to is 10 kinds of up.
The other thing I will add to, Gerry, I think is an important thing, and I think this is where we get into the world of like we're in these silos of conversations, right? We hear what the comic artist side especially is feeling. We went through all this when the DALL-E 3 stuff came out, and suddenly you could prompt Batman clips that were clearly Matt Cain Batmans or specific types of Batmans. I will also say there are lots of really interesting people that are using these AI tools to make original art, meaning that they are not just prompting and spitting something out, but they are in a lot of ways using these tools in the way that a digital artist might use layers to do stuff with. So like it is a really nuanced conversation that often loses nuance in these silos because it is often these people are this, these people are that, and there is no in between. And I think with AI art particularly, it is such a strong feeling.
We all knew this was coming. And, we talked this a lot. I was talking to the WGA committee members that, were,
right.
There's an AI committee, right? Like we always felt like, and I don't know if this was their opinion, I felt like we had less to lose than everyone else in this conversation, and the studios included. If you can do those sorts of things, if you can just like Warner Brothers, right? Like, why do you need any of this? You can have the young audience, right? The kids would much rather watch dozens of TikToks that equal a 90-minute feature than sit for and watch a 90-minute feature. So there is fear, and that fear is palpable and fear is contagious. But I also know that these are, like, I personally know these artists that have had their work ingested into this, and they all will either use this word or they will not understand that what they're trying to communicate is they all feel violated.
Right, which we understand, we've talked about, and I think it is, especially, I don't know if you saw this, but like when there were some documents that came out around Midjourney's training not that long ago, which specifically talked about how can we make models look like specific artists.
How do we launder our data?
It is laundering. Yeah. It's absolutely laundering, and I was not kidding about the of it, because I think people are going to be very surprised about how some of the larger media companies feel about this. They're necessarily racing to have AI make, I'll keep using Batman because I'm not writing Batman because you can't own that. Like, great, you just copyrighted. The Copyright Office does not want any part of it. And I think that's the correct decision. Now, how much of this ocean of money will come forth and change all of this? By the way, I'm very aware that there are going to be uses of AI outside of entertainment, outside of art, and outside of music that you're going to be very grateful for. If we could throw an AI onto our traffic here is pretty good in terms of sequencing, but there's all sorts of ways that you can sort of task AI to in the background of our life. I hope that will make things better.
Some civil engineer just perked up at their curved monitor and took off their hard hat and said, oh, AI is great when it's coming for my job, but not you?
Yeah, exactly. Here's a weird question for you, because I do think something from your side of the pond, let's say from the writing side, let's take this Batman example. Do you think there will ever be a time in the, say, near future, let's not say like far future, because who knows what the hell happens 20 years away from now, but in the next 5 years, that an AI would be able to, using all the Batman stuff that it knows, make a script for a Batman comic or a film or whatever that you would read if you didn't know it was AI, that you think would be great? Given that we're only at square one of this effectively, right? I think maybe it will. The real question becomes,
is there a market for it? There would serve me the curiosity factor of, oh, let's go see what a machine thought we would like. You know, it's
who did the machine cast as the penguin this time?
And
right,
like that's the thing. I think, given the last year, it's a strong possibility that it will.
And Gerry, we can edit this out, but what are your favorite AI tools, and what have you made with them? I mean, did you spend a lot of time with Dolly? Have you had conversation with ChatGPT?
I'll counter, and I'll give you the chance to edit out my response, which is, there's more humanity in John Wayne Gacy's clowns than there are in some of this AI art. Like, at least that guy sat down at whatever easel he had and was making art, horrid art that like meant something to him. Now I'm only half kidding.
My only thought with this stuff is that maybe there's a world, and I know there's a lot of conversation in the Sora world about this, is that maybe more original voices come out because you don't need a Warner Brothers to make a movie. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that is part of the upside of this.
I guess here's my problem is humanity has never met a shortcut it did not like. Right.
That's very true.
And
it screwed a lot of things up too, for sure.
If I could quantum leap into Martin Scorsese as a young man and go, there's no need for you to get that Super 16 or Super 8 camera. I've got a magic box, this Jack Kirby mother box, and you're going to be able to make a 2-hour feature, full color, no budget constraints. I would absolutely ruin Martin Scorsese. And so that's is a piece of what we're getting, like, and I'm dealing with this on a project of mine that has come back around. An earlier comic of just things that I did that I wouldn't have done, and looking at it in fresh eyes and going, okay, how can I? It's a comic book, I think, that has aged really well.
Is this the one where you gave Shrek the Total Recall alien breasts?
It's Shrek meets the three-boobed lady from Total Recall.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. That's an incredible Sora output. I would watch a lot of that.
It's really, the art still holds up. The lighting looks incredibly realistic. I think you did a fantastic job.
What makes an artist, and whatever discipline, whatever medium you're working in, that journey is so important. The ability to make mistakes is so important. Or, my first year at college at Emerson, we had 2 movies. We had 2 movies that we were going to go and make, and it was so illustrative that I was learning more outside of those classes and failing up than in classes. And so, yeah, I get it. We're giving it's every man a Prometheus now, but like, what are you really saying, right? Like, I can't put a creative bone in your body. Like, you have to earn that stuff.
It's the human organic thing we've talked about too, in some ways, that there is definitely going to be a movement towards human made. It'll just be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
What can we do? I think humans will say, well, I'm only going to watch the thing that has a label that's stamped on it that is, designed by human, made by human, maybe 10% AI to clean up the effects. We might be able to do that. But what do you think humans can or should do, knowing that, as you said earlier, like, the genie's sort of out on this one? Like, even if you were to stop progress today, if there was a magical button that you could hit and the big companies aren't going to do it, there's enough code and enough curiosity out there that these things are going to evolve regardless.
Money, right? It's all about, like, who's being paid for what, and who. Right now, it feels like hungry hippos out there, right? In terms of trying to hoover up all this money with the promise of what? You can't sell it. Can't copyright it. So right now, like, I think keeping our powder dry and seeing how things shake out, is interesting. I know it's a tool. Patton Oswalt hosts the visual effect, or had been hosting the Visual Effects Society for many years. And the thing that I really gleaned from 10 or 12 years of being there was how sort of overworked they all were as these movies grew and grew and grew and grew. And not just the effects shots inside of those movies, but the number of movies and video games and commercials, on and on and on. They were so overworked that they there's a real movement afoot to join IATSE. AI, I hope, doesn't take away any of those artist jobs. What I hope is maybe in a video game space, in a movie space, AI as a tool, a legitimate tool for having been trained on your own stuff, maybe that's the place where you go, thank God for AI. I got to be home at 5 and see my family, right? The other way that I thought about it, and I'm not an attorney, but my mom was an attorney. I just look at AI as it's like Paul's Boutique, right? Paul's came out and they were like, thank you very much, Rolling
It's not
Stones.
though. I'm going to tell you why it's not, but I know where you're going with this. I know. Yeah.
But, right, it was taking. And then those artists were like, hey, what the Now, things changed after that, right? But that was a famous test case of the Dust Brothers went in, hoovered up the music universe, and then there were lawsuits.
Yep.
Now,
the difference here, so I was going to say Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot is basically Microsoft's version of the ChatGPT whole thing. They have promised to people to use their developer kit, and mostly people are using Copilot to program with, but they have promised that they will pay the legal fees of anybody who is sued for the use case because, and this is probably a 20-minute conversation, so we don't have to get into this, but like the argument that the AI companies make, which I don't think is a spurious argument, like there is real legal precedent here in that what is fair use, right? Because with Paul's Boutique, which I am a giant fan of Paul's Boutique, but you're right, it kicked off the entire clearance sample world. De La Soul couldn't be on Spotify for a very long time because of samples. What those were collages. And a lot of people think of AI material as a collage. You're taking a piece of this, you're taking a piece and you're putting it together. Technically, it is not a collage. It is using all of this inspirational stuff in a similar way. I'm not saying this the exact same way, in a similar way to a person might absorb stuff over the course of their lives and then creating a new thing. And that is a different way to look at these than the traditional Paul's Boutique sample argument.
I think my knee-jerk reaction to that is, why are we horny to completely demolish entire industries without universal basic income? I want to go.
Yeah, well, I want to go 100% agree. Yes, I 100% agree with that.
Look down and just go. Let's say air traffic control, that's a powerful unit. AI may go, we can bring it down to 0% fatalities at the cost of,
all the jobs.
Yes, every job known to man. And, this is not a country that is going to go for UBI until people are out in the streets for 60 days. It's going to look like RoboCop from coast to coast. And that may be our future anyway.
Yes, that's the kind of that downside of it. Well, before we go, let's think about a real positive image. Jared, you got something you could leave us with that isn't an apocalyptic life of where we're headed?
Me preferring John Wayne Gacy's artwork to AI wasn't enough. Sunshine to splash around.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to clip that out and throw it at the end of this just one more time.
Jerry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
What can people currently read of you right now? What should we go look for?
Really briefly, I'm super thrilled. I'm wrapping up my favorite comic book as a kid was the X-Men. I have been privileged to be writing the X-Men and Iron Man at the same time.
Cool.
And then I have this. This is my new Image comic, Falling in Love on the Path to Hell.
This is the first time hearing about this?
Good thing I've been cooking up. The era of the gunslinger and the samurai, their eras roughly overlapped. The end of their eras in the late 1870s.
That's awesome.
So their love story when they both are killed and wind up in purgatory. And Sheila Gary Brown's drawn the hell out of it. I'll send you both PDFs. I don't think quite people will understand exactly what they're getting until you read through issue 4, but we're through issue 4, so we're gonna.
And that's out right now. You can go get that at your comic book store.
That's a special scoop for you guys. It drops.
Oh,
I did not plan this, even though I will not admit that I didn't plan this. It drops the same day as my last issue of X-Men in June.
Awesome. Congrats, man. Well, thank you so much for being here and being our AI hater. I know you're not totally a whole hater, but you fair close enough, but we love it. And this is, again, it's important to have these voices on.
Look, I appreciate it. I know you guys have always been at the bleeding edge and cheering. And I've been the recipient of that enthusiasm. And, it was my privilege to come here and achieve my final Gen X form and tell you that everything that you love sucks.
I still love you, buddy. I've always loved you,
I
always will. And even the AI model that I'm training to replace you, I know it's not gonna. It's gonna get close enough, though. It's gonna get close enough.
Oh, betrayal! A betrayal.
That was awesome. We love Gerry. Go check out his comics. He's the best. Obviously, Kev, we love having people that are not just AI enthusiasts on this show. It's important, we think, to have these conversations. And there's a lot of important things to talk about.
He hates it, and he hates us. And I love that.
He doesn't hate us. He doesn't.
Come on
hate
the
us,
show.
Kevin.
Let's go, baby.
So we're wrapping up here, but as always, if you are listening to us, please share the show. Tell somebody about it. Go on YouTube and like the show. Subscribe to the channel if you're on there. The biggest and best thing you can do is leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Why is that? Because if on Apple Podcasts, which is really the big audio podcast platform, it helps you get discovered in a much bigger way. As we always do, we are reading our 5-star reviews at the end of the show. We have one new one this week, which is exciting. Not as big as last week, but one is better than none, Kevin. And would you like to read off this week's 5-star review?
I would not, because I just saw the title of the post. But you know what? I'm going to feed the title to our PR expert, again, powered by AI, and see if she can say it.
Let's see what she has to say.
This is a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts by user Andrung. The subject is this.
Ja, et eller annet der tror jeg nå sier så jævlig.
And the body of the review.
Keep going.
The body of the review is, this show has taught me more about AI than any other source. The stories and information coupled with the comedy make what used to be an overwhelming amount of confusing information easier to digest. Kevin and Gavin have a chemistry that is convincingly sincere.
Convincingly, because it's not real. It's convincingly
sincere raves iTunes reviews. Their conversations are endlessly entertaining and informative. Kevin dismisses the AI co-host too soon. Tetris Battle Royale was Kevin's idea first. Well, that is also true and very unrelated to this podcast, but still very true. So thank you for that. I guess I have been a little dismissive of our AI co-host, but I think I was right to be today, Gavin.
I think so. Well, fair enough. Honestly, I don't remember. It all goes right out my head. Anytime you say something, it just goes right outside.
Wow. And this is the kind of convincingly real, sincere chemistry you could ever imagine is right here, friends.
We'll see you all next week. Thanks again. Bye-bye, y'all.
See ya.